as they're simply not paying now. And that fair economy also demands that every worker is paid a living wage. It's really not a radical statement to say that if you work full-time, you should earn enough money to live on.
Natalie Bennett there of the Green Party. Well, let's return to the Conservative Party manifesto launch and hear how the Lib Dems are reacting to it all. There is Danny Alexander, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Very good afternoon to you, Mr Alexander. Now, if you go back into coalition or coalition negotiations with the Conservatives, what parts of that manifesto would you like to see junked?
Well, we'll set our own manifesto tomorrow. We'll set out our own priorities for the country. I think that the Tory manifesto today is a total con, to be honest, because the numbers simply don't add up. They've kept their cuts secret, and you know that they don't just want to balance the books in 2017-18. They want to make another 20
as well,
billion
Mr. Alexander.
On top of that. So it just doesn't add up.
Well, sorry, I think I noticed you being in the Treasury for the last 5 years. They're your cuts as well.
Certainly not the ones that are being set out for the next Parliament by the Tories. There is a big difference between the Liberal Democrats and all the other parties in this election. We set out on Sunday how we would go about balancing the books by 2017-18, how we do so fairly by asking more from the wealthiest through a variety of tax changes that we want to make, how we'd get money in terms of the welfare system and departmental spending, and how we therefore fund also the cuts to income tax, the extra support for the National Health Service that we want to deliver early in the next Parliament. What you haven't heard at all today from the Conservatives is how they'd balance the books, is how they'd find this mythical £12 billion of welfare savings that they say they can find but won't tell us about, how they'd find the extra 20 billion of cuts beyond 2017-18 that they want to add on over and above what's necessary to balance the books. And we all know in the end it's the working people of this country who will pay the price if the Tories are allowed to govern by themselves. And that's why I think that most people looking at this Tory manifesto will say all these promises sound very nice, but it's a con trick because they won't tell us who pays and how it will be paid for.
All right, but back to my initial question, if you're in a position to influence a Conservative Party that's made these pledges, one of the ways of balancing the books more fairly is not going ahead with some of these spending pledges. What do you think about the right to buy for housing association tenants?
Well, firstly, I'm very sceptical about how they say it's paid for. I'm not convinced, though I haven't had a chance to study all the numbers in detail, I'm not convinced that the numbers add up. But more importantly, I think the big challenge in housing for this country is how do we overall build the number of homes people need? 300,000 houses a year. I think we need to build in this country. We'll set out more details tomorrow about how we'll do that. And how do we extend the potential of home ownership, not to one subset of the population, but across society? And that's why our idea of rent to own, of people being able to rent a house for a number of years and build up to owning it over that time, I think has caused such interest in this election. Because actually it's a fair way to say, across society, many, many people are renting at the moment. They can't afford big deposits. They can't necessarily afford to buy their own council house or housing association house. But through down payments over time, they could get into a position to own their own home. I think that's a much better way to deal with the problems we face.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr Alexander, but a lot of people listening to that would kind of assume that you've been outside the Houses of Parliament, raging at the machine, powerless to get these new houses built. You've been sitting inside the Treasury for 5 years, sharing pizza with George Osborne. This is your mess as well.
Well, the thing that we have delivered in this Parliament, which is very much something that the Lib Dems have argued for and delivered, is the largest programme of building of new social housing in this country for 2 or 3 decades. Over the course of the plans that we've set out, both over the last 5 years and in the first 3 years of the next Parliament, 300,000 social homes a year are being built.
Well, hold on, you presided over a renewed house price boom. That's why so many people can't afford to get on the ladder.
Well, we're presiding over a growing economy. And that's something I'm very proud of, and that economic growth is leading to job creation, and it's leading to many more people having the resources that they need to get started on the housing ladder. But the other side of that equation is how do we make sure that we build the homes people need? That's why Nick Clegg has been championing the idea of new garden cities in this country. It's why I've been pushing the idea of government directly commissioning housing. It's why in our manifesto we're setting out this objective, which the Conservatives didn't sign up to in this Parliament, of building 300,000 homes a year over the next few years to make sure that we're building the houses that our country needs.
You can't have it both ways, though, Mr. Alexander. When I accused
yes, I can, actually,
I accused you of having your fingerprints all over it, having been
you're
in
wrong
the
about
Treasury,
that,
not building enough houses. You said we did, and then you posed the question: how do we build enough affordable homes?
Well, I'm sorry, but I take full responsibility for what we've done in this Parliament. But what I'm setting out is
you've got to admit that.
When you look at the plans for the next Parliament, there are big, big differences between the Liberal Democrat approach, which is about balancing the books and doing so fairly, investing in the housing and the infrastructure that our country needs, and the Tory approach today, which is a con based on secret cuts to welfare and to public services that go way beyond what is necessary to balance the books. And that's why I think any informed voter should take the promises that are made today by David Cameron with a very, very big pinch of salt indeed.
OK, Mr. Alexander, thank you very much indeed. Dali Alexander there, and we'll be hearing the Lib Dems' plans, their manifesto, as Mr. Alexander was saying, tomorrow.